This time it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Ray McCallum, our head basketball coach for men in some familiar surroundings, who will co-chair the 1994-95 United Way campaign. Each year at this time, we take a bit of our time to become more aware of those in our community.
First of all, it's great to see you in the stands here at University Arena. And I know you'll be back. I would like to start with just a short story about my first experience with United Way. I can recall the time many years ago when I was in the 3rd grade. I went around my neighborhood collecting money for the United Way. I proudly wore my medal badge and worked hard to be the top salesman in the class. Little did I know then that I would someday be asked to stand in front of thousands of my colleagues at my alma mater as head basketball coach, asking for United Way dollars. The University Arena is a far cry from Macedonia Avenue, where I first solicited United Way dollars as a youngster. Continue your support for United Way, as well as the Cardinals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ray. I want to extend a very special welcome to our new faculty and professional personnel seated in the audience today. I hope that my remarks and President Worthen's will be of some help in acclimating you to Ball State University, and that your entry into a new academic setting will be a smooth one. To returning faculty, of course, welcome back. I hope that at some point in the summer you found the opportunity for the rest and relaxation that we all require. If you were away for all or part of the summer, you may have missed some of the announcements of interest to faculty and some accolades, and I'd like to take some time this morning to report on a few of them. First, academic research has had a record year. A little bit of bounce back on that. It's probably appropriate for academic research. While final figures are not complete, funding for sponsored programs in fiscal 1993-94 reached a record high figure of $6,709,995 in support of 230 projects. As I study the report from Dr. Pyle and his staff, I'm absolutely amazed at the amount of funding that came to us through agencies of Indiana state government and from Indiana corporations, which I think implies a vote of confidence in Ball State University to work on a wide range of social issues and needs. Also worthy of note is the significant funding that came to telecommunications and our teleplex activities, and likewise in the area of architecture and planning. But I hesitate to single out any specific project because the best thing about this current success is the breadth as well as the depth of these endeavors. A growing number of departments now actively seek and receive external research funds, and the grants awarded are a very healthy combination of the large and the small. Further, I know of a number of initiatives virtually guaranteed to be funded that will not show up on this record until next year. Everyone who has contributed to these very impressive successes certainly deserves our commendation and congratulations. A second announcement refers to our summer green programs inaugurated 2 years ago. Once again, we were able to accept 20 faculty, this time out of 47 applicants, to the summer workshop, and they represented 5 colleges and 16 departments. As you know, the purpose of the workshop is to identify environmental problems and to examine how these issues may be incorporated into course content. Although the faculty who are participating teach courses that would not normally include an environmental focus, the interest and commitment were apparent to all the people who selected those who received the grants. Statistically, I can report that if we add up the workshop participants for the last 3 years, the faculty receiving summer grant writing support and the persons receiving Green for Green funds, we can now say that over 10% of the Ball State faculty has received direct support for environmental interests. will not abandon these efforts. Collectively, I think that universities like Ball State can make an enormous contribution to sustaining and improving life on this planet. In fact, you'll be hearing much more about our environmental activities as plans develop for Ball State University to host an international academic conference on the theme of the greening of the campus community in September of 1995. Statistics also demonstrate that we're making great progress in our stated goal of internationalization. This summer, more faculty and students than ever before took advantage of the 1994 study abroad programs. 23 faculty from 16 departments, representing all of our colleges, led 196 students on 18 programs to 16 different countries. These statistics represent a 63% increase in program offerings compared to last summer and a 45% increase in student participation. This morning, Associate Provost Beverly Pitts honored the faculty participants at a pre-convocation breakfast. During the summer, individual faculty have been making their mark also on the profession of college teaching. Some very quietly, others in a more dramatic way. I think it's particularly noteworthy when a colleague is honored by a national organization, and so we certainly want to extend our congratulations to Professor Patricia Keith Spiegel, who a few days ago received the Distinguished Teaching of Psychology Award from the American Psychological Foundation. Cited for her dedication to scholarship and her consummate teaching abilities, Professor Keith Spiegel reminds us of what matters at Ball State, even when it requires sometimes a rather delicate balancing act. And that leads to my next announcement and accolade. There's a group of faculty at Ball State, a group you may have not heard very much about, that just submitted a comprehensive report on the subject of scholarship. Its work began last January when 50 faculty members representing the 6 academic colleges and nearly every department met to examine the role of faculty in contemporary higher education. Specifically, the group focused on Ernest Boyer's Scholarship Reconsidered in order to formulate a plan for post-workshop action. The outcome is a proposal based on the group's analysis of the presence of Boyer's 4 modes of scholarship at Ball State: teaching, discovery, integration, and application. The faculty modified the model somewhat, renaming application as outreach and adding the scholarship of professional citizenship. They recommended that the modified Boyer model provide the basis for describing scholarship here at Ball State, and that it inspire developments in future university policy toward the faculty working environment, the use of university resources, the reward structure within the university, the outside activities of faculty, and the overall outcomes of faculty scholarship. Incidentally, the report has become known as the Different Dawn Report, and the faculty, 50 in number, as the Different Dawn Group. The name Different Dawn, I might point out, was suggested by a composition by Emmylou Deemer, whom some of you will remember. This was performed for the 75th Anniversary Festival concert last November. A contemporary American composer, Deemer had based her composition on an Emily Dickinson poem, There is a Morn Unseen. A portion of the poem reads, and I quote, "I wait thy far fantastic bells, announcing me in other dells, until and unto the different dawn." Using different dawn as a metaphor for moving forward, the study group succeeded in a most difficult task, defining more precisely the concept of the teacher-scholar here, while at the same time modifying it to address the ideals of Ball State University's mission statement. The Different Dawn group deserves our praise, including its organizing faculty, the workshop leaders, and the writing committee. It now recommends and requests that University Senate undertake a review of the document's recommendations through its established governance procedures, which I'm sure will happen during the course of our next academic year. But Different Dawn is not the only productive study group on our campus. Recently, Graduate School Dean David Wheeler has been meeting with faculty to discuss the role of graduate education in a premier teaching university. From these discussions, a concern has emerged for the preparation of graduate students for careers in college teaching. Last February and April, the Dean convened meetings in which I had the privilege to participate along with 20 of our colleagues to explore these questions. Who will do the premier college teaching in the 21st century? And what should be the response of Ball State University, a Doctorate I degree-granting institution known for excellence in teaching? A major result of the first meeting was a decision to conduct a graduate teaching assistant survey of academic units to determine the extent to which assistants are being prepared for teaching responsibilities. Survey responses revealed an interest in improving the preparation of assistants assigned to teach, a need for the university to participate in the process, and a desire for a coordinated effort. Under the aegis of the graduate school, a number of initiatives are planned for the months to come. These include the collection and dissemination of information on effective teaching training programs for teaching assistants, the development of printed and audiovisual materials for assistants and supervisors, the establishment of a resource center, the initiation of college teaching workshops, and the encouragement of discipline-based coursework and programs of study in college teaching. The goal of these initiatives and others under consideration is to better prepare our assistants for their current responsibilities in the classroom, laboratory, or studio, and in so doing to provide them with the foundation needed to become the premier college teachers of the next century. Again, I wish to thank all who have been involved in these important discussions, and especially Professor Deb Balo in the Department of Psychological Sciences, who has agreed to be the project's coordinator. Another accolade goes to the Pew Roundtable. Because it met late in the academic year, you probably did not have the opportunity to hear what came out of it, and I believe a great deal of value has come out of it already. In the way of background, this year Ball State University joined 30 selected colleges and universities throughout the nation as a participant in the Pew Higher Education Roundtable project. The Roundtable, sponsored by the Pew Charitable Trust, Philadelphia, is described as a national laboratory designed to seek practical answers to problems facing higher education. Each roundtable group is looking at issues such as college costs, the quality of teaching and learning, and access that are common to all institutions. The first meeting of the Ball State Roundtable was convened on April 5th and 6th by Dr. William Massey, professor and director of the Stanford Institute for Higher Education. The group consisted of 24 faculty and administrators and 1 student. The questions for discussion were these: what kinds of steps might the university consider to pool its strengths more effectively in the fulfillment of its mission? What opportunities exist for encouraging a greater spirit of collective endeavor, both within and among academic departments? In what ways could the university's academic programs be made to bring about a more effective alignment of faculty effort with student learning needs? In what ways can technology be employed to strengthen the teaching learning processes at Ball State University? As a participant, I was delighted by the thoughtful, often difficult discussions that ensued. The scribe, Dr. Greg Wegner, who was provided to us by the Pew Higher Education Roundtable, has submitted a 10-page written report to serve as the basis for broad campus discussion. Let me mention at this time just a couple of what I think are the report's salient points. First, the participants emphasized the high quality of our teaching learning environment and affirmed that this commitment to personal interaction and mentorship constitutes one of Ball State's greatest strengths. I couldn't agree more. Dr. Massey then raised the question of elasticity. That is, how Ball State, when confronted by external change, can take effective steps to direct its resources in ways consistent with its values and mission. Generally, the response was that any consideration of the future should seek to preserve the things we do best by engaging faculty as primary agents of change, seeking a better alignment of institutional mission and rewards, and retaining a focus on the university's role in providing students with tools for making ethical decisions. However, the group also described some specific factors that impede the university's ability to become more elastic, most notably what has come to be called property rights. Because individual programs often reflect the identity of particular faculty members or administrators, any move to eliminate a program may be taken as a personal affront. The tendency, therefore, is to avoid difficult decisions that could potentially free up resources for areas of emerging need or opportunity. Second, participants also devoted considerable attention to the department structure as the key agent of property rights. It was pointed out that the system of rewards within both academic and administrative areas is geared more to individual than collective performance. So the roundtable began to consider such questions as these. How might departments be encouraged to take a more collective approach to fulfilling their obligations to students and to scholarship? And is it possible to build a department culture that accords different kinds of responsibility to individual faculty in meeting departmental and institutional goals? Throughout the discussions, participants emphasized the resourcefulness of our faculty. It was noted that the institution can signal its readiness to address external change by visibly engaging in activities that, so to speak, keep it ahead of the curve. Defining challenges and opportunities on its own terms rather than clinging to accustomed modes of operation in the face of altered means and expectations. A second meeting of the Roundtable is scheduled for August 28th and 29th. Copies of the articles that provided a starting point for our discussions are available from department chairs, deans, and the Bracken Library Reserve Desk, and I'll certainly keep you informed as we proceed with this important endeavor. However, I'd like to comment more fully on a part of the first discussion that was of particular interest to me, and that was the section on encouraging a greater spirit of collective endeavor within academic departments. Please understand that I am not downplaying the need for interdisciplinary cooperation, but rather recognizing that the context within most teaching occurs is still the academic department. As such, we need to examine departmental cultures and how they relate to faculty members' ability to work together on teaching. Not only did the Roundtable contribute to my thinking on this matter, but also a very fine article in the July-August issue of Change magazine entitled Overcoming Hollowed Collegiality. I recommend it to all of you. As I began to read, I looked back at the authors' names and realized that Bill Massey, whom I just met at our roundtable, and two Stanford associates were the co-authors. For a project financed by the United States Department of Education, they had interviewed some 300 faculty in 15 colleges and universities about the environment for their work. The initial results indicated that many faculty do indeed counter conditions that hinder their ability to collaborate on issues of teaching and learning. One of these key conditions is fragmented communications patterns that isolate, atomize, if you will, individual faculty. As one faculty member said to Dr. Massey, this university is full of people who really can't talk to each other. Yet in the same study, Massey found departments that seemed particularly exemplary in that they had developed a supportive culture for teaching and scholarship by means of frequent interaction among their faculty, generational equity, and consensus decision-making. Massey elaborates by saying that faculty in departments that support teaching talk with each other frequently, in formal department meetings, in curriculum review sessions, around the copying machine, in the coffee lounge. They also demonstrate a high level of participation in shared departmental work rather than viewing these departmental assignments as simply, and I quote him, a time sink. On the other hand, in academic departments in the study where teaching he viewed was not so well supported, only the trappings of collegiality seemed to exist, thus the use of the word hollowed. Massey found in his respondents a sadness at the ways in which collegiality had diminished. However, he does not end the article on this note, but rather offers some concrete suggestions for ways in which the ideal of collegiality may be buttressed by a complement of newer ideas and a vision that can restore a sense of good work and shared endeavor. While it may go without saying, he gives paramount importance, and I would too, to communication. I agree and therefore am hopeful that the communication inherent in such endeavors as the Different Dawn Report and the Pew Roundtable deliberations will help us more fully achieve the collegial model, the ideal of a community of scholars that inspired so many of us to enter the ranks of the professoriate in the first place. In the process, I think, our students can only gain. I think you would agree that it is within the continuous dialogue with colleagues that we discover why we teach. We share stories of success and seek some sort of comfort or solace when we fail. We tell each other about the students who grow and change in front of our eyes. In recent years, it has become kind of a practice of mine to conclude these comments with a quote about teaching that I've kept in front of me. This one is actually about a decade old. It was printed in the alumni magazine of Johns Hopkins University, and at one time, I think, reprinted in at least one of our campus publications. In it, Professor of English Peter G. Beidler attempts to explain why he continues to teach, despite the lack of money and power that he says all Americans are taught to desire, quote, when they grow up, end quote. I quote him, "Being a teacher is being present at the creation when the clay begins to breathe. Nothing is more exciting than being nearby when the breathing begins. Teaching offers something besides money and power. It offers love. Not only the love of learning and of books and ideas, but also the love that a teacher feels for that rare student who walks into a teacher's life and begins to breathe. Perhaps love is the wrong word. Magic might be better. I teach because being around people who are beginning to breathe, I occasionally find myself catching my breath with them. It's my hope that we will all experience this kind of magic at some point during 1994-95. Thank you, and my very best wishes for a productive and satisfying new year. It's now my pleasure to introduce the President of Ball State University, Dr. John E. Worthen.
Thank you very much, Warren. Welcome back to all of our new colleagues and our visiting scholars from other countries. A very warm welcome to Ball State University. I'm confident that you will find this to be a very interesting university, and the people in our community will be most helpful and friendly. I'm sure for most of us, the summer was a short one, but I can report to you on some important developments since the end of the spring semester on May 7. Let me bring you up to date and then say a few words about the future. First, the state appropriation request for the 1995-97 biennium. After about 5 months of work developing our appropriation request to the Commission for Higher Education and the state legislature, the Board of Trustees on July 22nd adopted the request, and it's been forwarded to the Commission for Higher Education. Copies are available in the library and at each dean's office. I'm sure you will dash to the library to read this thick volume. But for those of you who are interested, there is a good deal of information there, and I would urge you to take a look at it. It's really two requests, one for the operating funds and one for capital expenditures. These will be considered separately, and if approved, the dollars will be appropriated to the university in separate accounts, which cannot be commingled. The request for operating funds is different this year from the past two biennia. First, it's a modest request. It's a request which includes only one small new program. It is a request which takes into account that the state's economy is growing slowly, and we believe the General Assembly will have sufficient funds to approve the request. In the past 4 years, We, that is Ball State and the other public institutions in the state, have received no increase in state appropriations for operations, mainly because there were simply no additional revenues available. In 1992, the Consortium of Public Colleges and Universities asked for more than a 30% increase when you combined the 2 years of the biennium. And although we presented a sound justification for this large increase, we and the other public universities were told that it was completely unrealistic, especially since the state revenues were down and legislators and the governor were not inclined to raise taxes. This biennium, we are trying to be sensitive to both the mood of the General Assembly and the state's economy, and so we're submitting a realistic request. That's one difference. The other is that we are working toward an agreement among all the public higher education institutions, the Commission for Higher Education, and the Governor's Office. This is critical. Each of the 7 public universities has agreed to ask for the same percentage increase for operating funds and salaries, and further has agreed to hold tuition increases to no more than 4% if the appropriation request is approved. I and several of our colleagues have been meeting since last February with the other presidents and university representatives to hammer out this agreement. Since March, this group has met several times with Dr. Clyde Engel, the Commissioner of Higher Education, and his staff, and a representative of the Governor's Office for the purpose of working out an appropriation request which could have the support of the Commission and the Governor. Finally, we've had 2 meetings with the State Budget Committee here on our campus this summer, and we were able to lay the groundwork for our request, which they will consider in November. This effort to obtain input and support of all